Hey mages, welcome to today's video. Today we're going to be looking at some really powerful decks. I've got for you today 7 decks that are the top tier 1 meta decks currently being played at the moment. Players are playing these up to Mythic and in Mythic, and they're getting really good percentages. The lowest percentage roughly of these decks is around 55.6%, going up to between 56, 57, 58%. So we're going to go through these decks, 7 decks starting from the bottom percentage. They're played over literally thousands of games, and although there is different iterations of each of these decks, I'm playing, showcasing the most popular version of them. Some of these decks have, covered games of over 100,000 games. So you know that they're being, put through their paces, and the stats are really good for you to grind up to the ladder. Now, thank you for watching today's video. I just want to say thanks for all the recent support. If you want to give the channel some help, you can press the like button, you can follow, you can hit the subscribe button, and also you can leave me a comment. I do reply to all of my comments in all of my videos, and I just appreciate you taking the time to watch it. But let's get on to the decks today that are going to help you get into Mythic and stay there and hopefully get to that special #1 spot. So the first deck we're looking at is a 4-color control deck using some really good Jeskai and Mardu cards here, and the space on this is roughly over 19,000 games, so it's got a very good sample size for what this deck is doing. Now, if you like control like me, this is a deck that I would definitely consider sort of crafting. I do like the way control decks play. Now, all of these decks are best of 1, but you can adapt them if you want to go to best of 3. It's completely up to you. I generally play more best of 1 at the moment. But what I like about this deck is that, being a blue mage myself, it runs counter magic, but it has, a little bit of everything in this deck. It has mass removal, and it does use some exciting spells like Inevitable Defeat. This can't be countered, so good against other type of control decks as well. Exile target non-land permanent, and it gives you a little bit of important life gain, which is needed against a lot of the other decks in the meta, like Boros Burn, Mono Red, decks like that. It really does help out a little bit. Exiling obviously is very good against any kind of reanimator deck, and there's definitely a few of them out there at the moment as well. And it runs this big 7-mana Jeskai Revelation. So this returns target spell or permanent to its owner's hand. It deals 4 damage to any target, create 2 1/1 monks, draw 2 cards, and you gain 4 lives. So although it does, there's 7 mana there, it does give you a lot, for that, which is, it's a great sort of card to bring you back into the game. Ultimately, I do like it destroys all artifacts, so that's going to be good against, the sort of decks like Simic Omniscience and Jeskai Artifact decks. Destroying all those artifacts really does help in those sort of things, so I can understand why this sort of deck is in there, because Jeskai Artifacts is one of the most played decks around at the moment, so it's obviously a very good card for that. I've seen some decks that run 3 of these and 2, so, depending on how much you're coming against that top tier deck, probably will sort of maybe push you into an extra copy of Ultima as well. But plenty more other kind of removal with Get Lost, pseudo removal, Helix can be removal, or just hit to the dome. 4 of these in there as well. Some of the best, one of the best uncommons in Magic. Stock Up gets to look at the top 5 cards, put 2 of them into your hand for 3 mana. Is really good, and looking at the a good way to go through your deck and find what you possibly may need as bits of your removal, or something like that. But you're really using this spell here to do the 4 damage to any target, creating those monks as well, and more damage with Helix to try and get your win done. Now, defeat as well is another way to drain opponent's life, so it's definitely a different take on a kind of control deck here. As you can see, no massive creature at the top end to sort of come in and get the kind of win that way as well, and it doesn't even run any of the creature lands as well, which I find very interesting. I'm thinking it might run the Dimir coloured one that can attack a mill at the same time. Would have been an interesting card maybe to put in this as a different type of land, but obviously this is getting results as is, which for me it's an interesting deck, like I said, because it doesn't run the normal type of control, which has like a easier win con with a big massive creature at the end. But I'm interested if anyone's played this one. Obviously there's a lot of players playing it, but how are you getting on there, and how is it closing out games? Is it closing them out quickly enough, or is best of 1, even though this is a best of 1 top tier deck, is it you sort of finding it a bit hard? But it does have lots of ways, like Consult, Stock Up, Mystical Teachings as well, to go and find the cards you do need. But yeah, I'm interested to let me know how this one plays for you. Number 6 on the list is Mono Red, of course. Mono Red Played thousands of games. This one's over a sample size of like 92,000. I get all my stats from Untapped GG and places like that can be found for you. But I try to obviously find it easier and collate them all in one video for you, so it's something for you to come reference back to. Mono red, not much to say about this. This deck's been around for an absolute age. It changes every now and again when we get some new cards added. For me, the absolute best card in the deck, which is scooted up in price in paper, is Screaming Nemesis. This is probably around a $25 card now at least. So this is, helps against the Lifegain decks, which is also on this list. You can just ping it with one of your Burst Lightnings or one of your Shocks. So you can, get this in turn 3 and stop that Lifegain happening straight away by pinging your own creature and then targeting a player, which is obviously a good move for any of you new players out there. You don't kill your own Screaming Nemesis, but you can stop that Lifegain, and it really does put, a hold on Mono Lifegain because they can quickly run away with the game, and obviously that is the nemesis of this deck. Attacking creatures now, we have Lava Runner that can sometimes have haste potentially if you're getting other stuff down. Claw is brilliant and can build up and just keep attacking in. Ember Challenger, the one with prowess, and Slick Shot are good ways to finish game as well. But for me, the powerful card is the Nemesis. Lots of damage to the dome with this one for opponents. Bolt Waves, Burst Lightnings, Shocks as a 4/4, Lightning Strikes, and then a little bit with removal with the Frenzy. But Mono Red, a lot of people still complain about it, but it's always going to be here, Mono Red, of some kind of iteration. But it's good that it's not, it's not the most consistent deck. This is around number 6, although the stats are very close. You will definitely get quick games. If you want to play a deck that's going to be quick wins, quick losses, and you haven't got much time, then this is probably the deck for you. The new one on the list for me, which I haven't seen for a little while, but I've seen it, I was seeing it a lot more, going back about 2 or 3 weeks ago, was the Kona deck, which is a Simic Omniscience deck. I've got 2 different ones here, 2 different arts, but still got the 4 in here. So this is a deck, apart from the lands, I'm missing 3 of each of these. I know I am because I had to look before I started doing the video, because it was a deck that interests me because I do like playing blue type decks. Just suits my play style a little bit better. And, I found when I've come across the Kona deck, it's been very, very hard to beat. Now, this iteration here is the one that I mentioned that's over the smallest amount of sample decks, which is still around 5,000 games, which is still a plenty amount. And there's not so many different iterations of this deck as well. There's, roughly only about 5 or 6. Where some of the other decks, there's so many different versions. But this one is pretty standard for what it is. And, it's an interesting deck because you're looking this to come down and then you're looking to, get it tapped straight away if you can. Or, get one of these in play. And once you've got the Omniscience in play, it's just really hard to deal with because, playing spells for free, turns out, is pretty good. And when you've got some good powerful spells in there, like the Meringue River region coming down, Bloomfield, when this comes into play, as a 4/5 dragon as well, and you've got the Quantum Riddler, they're pretty big beaters and very hard to deal with. Now, to sort of counteract that, you've got Bounce Off, which is return target creature or control. And what's good about Bounce Off is that, even though it's only a single off, you can actually bounce your own creature when they do try to kill it, when you maybe potentially cheat it into play. Consult the Star Charts helps you go through a very popular card in Standard because it's just powerful. You can play it with the kicker or without the kicker. Either way, it just depends on how many lands you've got in your deck. Now, this one does run, it's got 24. I'd expect it really to run 25. I'm sure I've seen ones with 25, 26, but maybe 24 sounds good for this because it does have a fair bit of card draw with Roiling Storm as well. But some newer cards in here, but the bit more protection. So unauthorized exits, return target non-permanents to its owner's hand. Generally you're doing that to target your own stuff, I think, from removal. Is the way that I'd sort of protect my plays this week. Sometimes you might just have to bounce opponent stuff to, to keep alive. But yeah, again, stock up, very popular card on every blue deck because the power uncommon in Standard at the moment is this. I do like the look of this deck. It's the deck that I would, probably try and craft. I mean, for those of you that play it, I understand why these are in here because of the station ability. You want the station to be able to tap Kona straight away, because if this is tapped, you may put the permanent card in. So you do really need the 4 and 4 of these to actually activate the station to then do this and then get something big into play like your Omniscience, and then you just basically just go off from there. But definitely one that I'm interested in crafting my extra ones of these. and then seeing how the deck plays. I like, you know, the sort of stats for it. It's coming in around number 5 on the list for me at the moment, so still doing very well and winning games, but yeah, definitely one I'd like to try. We then have good old mono Lifegain, still as consistent as ever. This one's, you know, in the top 4. Roughly running 56% as well on the win rates. Lots and lots of tiny different iterations of this deck, swapping one card, changing another card. Sometime we go for 3 Exemplar and 3 3 and then 3 Lindens. It does swap it around a little bit. But generally the basis of this is fine. I do see some decks that only run 2 ley lines, which I find, I don't know, I just don't find that very good, because you want this in your opening hand, because with this deck, if you get that opening hand of ley lining, goes in for free, a hinterland, Lean in, and then all of a sudden the lurker, you're really building up the life game super quick, and turn 2-3 you are smashing in with the +2/2 already, and that's what it just, you know, obliterates mono red straight away. And you know, they've got to wait till turn 3, then potentially turn 4 as well to actually get, you know, stop your life gain like I spoke about earlier. But for me, this is a deck that I can just go to if I want to play some easy magic. I just go in with my life lane deck and just start, you know, dropping creatures, gaining all the life, hopefully come against mono red if I can. Boros Burn sometimes I find a little bit harder to beat, but, you know, mono red you can sometimes, with the amount of players playing it, as I said, mono red, 92,000, you know, sample matches in that is one, you know, the second highest, behind only mono white, with over 110,000 matches being played. So you know how popular this one is, and you're going to come across it a lot. So sometimes it's good to play a deck that can beat this deck as well. So all in all, a very good deck. Control decks find this a little bit easier with the Wraths and just constantly getting out, although it does run a lot of creatures, so they are constantly going to be able to refill their board. But I do feel like sometimes it's the control decks, if they can stop you early, you know, you turn to Ajani's Essence Channel that they're killing straight away. They've got Get Lost to drop, you know, kill your Ley Line of Hope as well. So those sort of decks are bad matchups for me personally. I don't know if you find the same, but I still get plenty of wins with this. And yeah, it's just super ultra consistent. As we move up the percentage ladder of winning, Gruul Landfall's in at number 3. Very good deck. The addition of the red, as we know that everyone started flashing red just to play World Styles Rage. It was a good bit of tech. Whoever found that bit of tech is masterful. This deals X damage to any target, revealed up to X land cast from your hand or graveyard, and onto the battlefield tapped. And when that goes in and you're putting your Brosly Brills and your Hydras that have trample and just get so many double counters in, it's just like a combo win. And sometimes even just the X damage just does the win on itself as well, because you've managed to get in some early attacks with your Chocobos. The protection's there for Veil, just the 4 in this one. Very, very, you know, simple deck to play. It's just getting your creatures in, hopefully having protection. Sometimes, you know, you do have to hold back sometimes. What I do is I go with my Chocobo straight away, and then they might remove me, and I'm saving for my bigger, you know, my protection for my Hydras and my Lockharts, because they're generally the ones that are going to get you to win, just basically for the trample. Chocobo doesn't have the trample, but it can get a big creature just to keep attacking in. But these are the ones that I generally try and save it for. Lots of, you know, the whole, what revolves around this deck is the land base. So Terramorphic Expanse has a couple of, Fable Passage, 4 of these, 4 Escape Tunnels, and there's the Evolving Wilds as well. So plenty of way to get double triggers on this deck. And it's just a deck that just, you know, it's very consistent as well. Very much like the mono white life gain, mono red. Plenty of quick games with this one. Top end, it does run now a couple of Explorers that it never used to run, but it does run them now. It used to run an extra couple of protection spells for me that I used to run, so I'd have 6 protection spells, because your Hydras and Lockharts are always targeted and always killed, and they're your main win cons. But I do like this in there. If you're finding that they're just dying too easy, I'd swap this 2 out personally. But this is, you know, over around 36,000 sample size matches. You know, who am I to tell you to swap the deck around, because this is the most popular version. But that's just my, you know, my personal preference sometimes that I do. This is a very good card when it comes into play, because it does get you those extra lands. And against certain decks, this will be very good for you, without a doubt. But yeah, Gruul Landfall, that came with Final Fantasy. Definitely, I'm a Landfall player. Tachiova is my favourite commander, so you know for me, I love this deck. Last 2 decks. Now you're seeing Boros Burn, so you're probably going to guess what the number 1 deck is, the man with the highest win percentage. Boros Burn over some size 73,000. Definitely different iterations of this deck as well. There's around 35 different types of decks, but this is the most popular one. So by playing mono red, you change it to add a splash in the white, and what you're splashing it for is 3 very, very, very powerful cards. Lightning Helix, 3 damage, gain the life as well, so helps you there. Boros Charm, protection sometimes, but mainly 4 damage to the Dome as well to try and get the wins as quickly as possible. And premium removal, sheltered by Ghost. That turn 2 play can be crippling to some decks. It's really good against like the Gruul Landfall decks and against the Mono White Lifegain decks, or they do run their own version of Sheltered Ghost as well. But still, this is still premium removal, and the War 2 in this just makes it super powerful for me. 2 mana, what a card. Getting that on your Screaming Nemesis, it's hard because if they're using, damage removal, those opposing decks for your Lightning Heats, Boros Charms, just going to take that damage, which is good. So another deck that fights well sometimes against, I felt like this fights well better against the Mono White Lifegain deck myself. You can fly it over the top with the show. They have to wait to get their Exemplar out for their flying action, usually at their turn 4 plays. We can get this down turn 2, and then still lots of ways to peck away the creatures. Burst lightning, shocks as well. Doesn't run any lightning strikes in this because we use those spots for Boros Charms and lightning helixes, so that is one of the slight differences on that type of deck as well. Still runs High Claw because that's just an amazing tempo play as well. It runs sometimes there's a different goblin as well. There's the one that has I think it has Menace and Mobilize 1. I can't remember the name for it, but that's what it does. But this one runs Grease Red Goblin. So this is a 2-1 for 1, which is really good. And it has the exhaust, so you can discard up to 2 cards if you get drawn too many lands. Then you get to put a 1-1 counter on this as well. So you can only activate each exhaust ability once. But obviously when you're playing this, the difference between this and a mono red deck is obviously you're going to spend a lot more rares on the lands. Inspired Vantage, Sacred Houndry, some below Virgin. It runs a couple of starting towns. So that is sometimes a factor that people obviously take in when they're building a meta decks, because the economy is pretty rough sometimes. It's not the easiest of economy. Sorry, I've got a cold today, so I appreciate if I sound a bit blocked up today. I've been in bed for 4 days, but I wanted to get this video out for you all. So yeah, sometimes that does factor in. Is you look at how many rares or something. If you've not got a great wildcard situation, you want to build one deck, then this sort of deck you've got to think, I've got 18 rares needed for the land base, so that does make a difference. But still, very, very consistent deck. Second of the pile currently at the moment and doing very well. But let's get on to the final deck. Final deck is a deck that I hate coming against. This just plays so well, which is why it's at the top. Jeskai Artifacts. People are talking about the bannings coming up. Oh, God, I'd love Repurposing Bay to go, because it just kills all my little weenie decks. It just really does. Or Synthesizer, but I actually think Repurposing Bay is the actual problem, because this sacrifice another artifact, search life for an artifact, mana value equal to 1+. It just keeps getting this removal, and it annihilates me. So any of those other sort of decks like Gruul Landfall, Mono Red Aggro, Mono White, this deck is just an absolute nightmare I find to play against. Authority that counters as well. If they get that turn 1 play, you're just stuffed on a lot of the aggro decks. Gaining that life, getting back into the game, it's just a constant uphill struggle. It's a very good deck. Utilise this powerful card based around United Battlefront. You get to look at the top 7 cards, put up to 2 non-creature, non-land permanents. So there's lots of way to find the remover for those many aggro decks that are in the current standard top meta. It's just very hard, I'm not sure how this plays against real hard control, because you got ways to get rid of some artifacts like Ultimia, which is why I think that might do better against this one. If you play those decks, let me know how you fare up. But I feel with Ultima in there, this is what can help, sort of sweep up this deck, which is why I'd probably go for 3 for the amount of times that I do play against this deck. Super consistent, finds its way to win matches. And then all of a sudden you're facing these big 11-11 construct multiples on the field. You've used all your removal trying to get rid of stuff, or putting it in there and doing to them, trying to get the life gain down as much as you can with some of the Boros Burn decks and everything like that. But yeah, it's just a very, very good deck. An absolute rare and mythic fest as most, but it does run its a fair sample size of commons and uncommons, and some very good ones. Relic was one of my favourite commons that came from Edge of Eternities. I just really love this for a simple blue card. Enters or leaves, you get to draw a card, so double card draw, and then you can sack it to put a stun counter on a tap card creature to slow a deck down. So yeah, just my little shout out for Cryogene Relic. It's just one of my favourite cards. But This, when I'm trying to just ladder up quick with quick aggro decks and have some quick games, is a deck that I'm like, do I just auto quick? If they turn one, drop the authority, and then you just, you basically know what's going to happen. So sometimes it's easier not to go around and get wound up by a deck, and this is that deck that winds me up in the meta, for sure. So there's 7 decks for you today. Sorry, like I said, bit of a cold, so sound a bit, my voice isn't perfect today at all. But hopefully you've enjoyed the video and, seen some decks at the top of the tier that you potentially might take and hopefully reach Mythic, and show me, let me know how high you get with some of these decks, which ones you've played. Let me know down in the comments below. And if you want to get any of these decks in paper and you're in Europe, you can get these. I do get asking, can these decks translate to paper? And they can. It was only the Spider-Man set, really, that has different cards compared to through the Omni paths. Same cards, different names, different arts, which is what they did because they didn't have the rights for that. So that is, you can check out Cardmarket if you're in Europe, and you can buy a deck there and buy the singles and build these decks together. That's a good way to do it. If you want to support me further, rather than just liking, commenting, and staying here till the absolute end, you're a legend. You can become a Total MTG Patreon. Check out that as well. And thank you to everyone that does that. But you lot take care, and I'll see you on the next video.